Okay, hello and welcome to this Food and Drink Tech Hub webinar hosted by myself, Alistair Trail. So I am a food and enterprise consultant based at SAC Consulting, which is the commercial arm of SRUC. And we have been asked by Highlands and Islands Enterprise to deliver the Food and Drink Tech Hub Business Support Service. So welcome to this webinar, which is on market insights. So just as I say, could you please put your mics on mute? Leave your cameras on, please, and we can see you. And if you have any questions, we'll ask you to put your hand up and we'll ask the questions at the end of each presentation. And there'll also be a little bit of time at the end of the session, which we should finish at about 5 o'clock. So we have three fantastic speakers today who are going to talk about market insight, what they are, what support is available, how we use them to bring new products to market and also help you to grow your business, and we'll also hear a bit about market insights from the retailer's perspective. But before I introduce our three fantastic speakers, I would like to talk briefly about the business support service to give you an overview of that in case you're unaware. So the Food and Drink Tech Hub Business Support Service is a 3-year project to provide business support, technical advice, events, workshops, webinars to help develop and grow the food and drink producers and supply chain businesses in the Highland Council area. Our plan is to try and work with 300 businesses over the 3-year project. And when we talk about supply chain businesses, that can be primary producers all the way through to food service and the retail sector. We're primarily working with businesses in the Highland Council area, but businesses out with the area can participate in the programme, but that would only be through our workshops and events and using our online resources. All the one-to-one delivery is focused on businesses in that Highland Council area. And we're concentrating on focus on opportunities for technology adoption and innovation related to food and drink manufacturing and production. And the project really got 3 areas we're trying to support. So we're trying to support businesses develop their growth plans and facilitate and broker advice and specialist technical support, increase awareness and implementation of new technologies, such as digital and automation, and we're trying to develop collaborations between the private sector and the public sector and academia to deliver this innovation and to support the growth of the food and drink sector in the Highlands. These are the areas that we've been working in. So as I said, the project's a 3-year project and we're just finished year 2. And the plan is hopefully there'll be a 4th year of the project as well. We're working on lots of different areas like product development, prototype testing, scaling up. We do a lot of work in packaging and product labeling, food safety, shelf life, nutritional analysis. Also do a lot on the environmental side, so that'd be sustainability, low carbon, net zero and waste management. We do a lot of work with branding, marketing, business planning, e-commerce, and also some work on technical side. So that could be factory layout, equipment specification, technical troubleshooting, that type of thing. So we try and offer a variety of different support for all parts of the food and drink sector. We have a website. If you haven't been on it before, it's on the HI page. So it's www.hi.co.uk/techhub. There you can find out a lot more information about the project and also access to our recordings of our workshops, including today's one, and also our podcast series called Food and Drink Business Bites. So our support's delivered a number of ways. We do a support call and signposting service. So if you're interested in that, please let us know, and you can have a 30-minute chat with one of our consultants, find out a bit more about your business and how the project can help you. You can let us know through email, or you can register on our webpage. We do our technical networking workshops, so that's a combination of face-to-face, online, and these technical webinars. We also do insights and best practice, so creating videos. We've got our podcasts and so forth. But most of our support's down the right-hand side. We have innovation clinics, where businesses can have a 20-minute meeting with a panel of experts. They can send the questions into the panel beforehand, and then the panel will do some research and give you some quick and easy answers to overcome these solutions. And these are going to be in different themes. So they've previously been on things like packaging and product development and online marketing and so forth. We have common interest groups where we can bring together companies from the same area or the same subsector. They come together and see how they can collaborate to overcome some challenges. We have intensive one-to-one support, which gives you 3 days of support from experts who work with you to overcome a challenge. And we also do learning journeys, and recently had a learning journey down to London for the IFE conference, which was really good. So that's the quick introduction to the TechHUB project, and this is the agenda for today. So that's my 5 minutes at the beginning. I'll then pass on to Anne-Laure Farah from Scotland Food and Drink, who's going to talk about market insights and support from Knowledge Bank. Then we'll have Rick Allison from Joseph Robertson, given a case study, how you take successful food products to market. And then we've got Charlie Dera from Curious Puffin, who's going to talk about market insights from the retailer's perspective, what potential suppliers should know, with a plan of finishing at 5 o'clock. So I will stop sharing my screen and ask Anne-Laure from Scotland Food and Drink to share her screen and start her presentation. So thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen, full screen. So as Alistair said, I'm from the Knowledge Bank. I've got background in consumer insights and category management. So I've worked with retailers like Sainsbury's and Ocado, Amazon in previous role. I worked in insights and data analysis with the likes of Diageo. But my day job now is the Knowledge Bank, which is part of Scotland Food and Drink. So I'll give a bit of an intro because it's really a great platform and as well as a team resource for you all. So the Knowledge Bank is really the insight team of Scotland Food and Drink and the Scotland Food and Drink partnership. On the platform, you can find insights on consumer trends, shopper behavior, market sectors, as well as category reports. And we also run webinars. You might have seen me on a webinar. We also have reports and presentation on trends, macro trends, sustainability, all sorts. And this is really investing in insights on behalf of the whole of Scotland Food and Drink industry. So you can have access to this. Please do access it because it's a wonderful resource. And we actually a team of three and a half, I would also say. So you might have come across Andrew Niven, who's been with Scotland Food and Drink for quite a while. Carol Sanders has joined us almost a year ago now as head of insights. And myself, I'm the UK Market Insight Manager. I said a half because Catherine Ellaway from Opportunity Northeast also worked part-time with us. I was saying we have a wealth of resource and sources. These are some of the insights we have access to either directly or through partners. And you can see there are all the big names that you might hear a bit more about in Rick's presentation later on, or even Charlie as well. So, these are really the best of the best. And we try to access this in the best way for you to understand how to use it. So really explaining how to, as well as giving you the view in Scotland, in the UK, internationally as well, if you are interested in export. So it's not only about Scotland market, it's overall. And if I give you a little bit of a flavor of the type of reports we produce and we have on the platform. So I was referring to category reports earlier, and that would really be what we call market data. So spirits category report, for instance, which is in our top 5 most downloaded reports. We produced one recently on crisps and snack, which is really looking at, so those category reports are really looking at both the Scotland market and the UK market in grocery retail, and contrasting what are the trends in Scotland, in the UK, what are the big categories, what are the size of those categories, and so on. So it's really helping you if you're preparing, for instance, a retailer meeting with a buyer, or it could be to size up the market if you want to produce a new product in a new category. So these are really helpful. And then we've got more around trends and macro trends. So I've put here things around food and nutrition. So really understanding your consumer global alcoholic drinks report is more like top line view on what is happening around the world in global alcohol, and what are the flavors and trends that we've seen. Market landscape, I was just referring to this as well in terms of looking at Scotland and the UK, whether in food services or in grocery retail. We just had a webinar on Friday morning with Kantar on Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, as well as the overall market with very fresh data. So if you're going to the Royal Highland Show this week, I really encourage you to access this because it can really help you prepare conversations with buyers attending the Royal Highland Show. And finally, we've got our own proprietary research. We commission our own consumer research, like Scottish Provenance, which is accessible here. We do store visits as well. So we've done lots of store visits for Christmas, Hogmanay, Burns Night, which, again, you can access. And it's a whole industry accessing this, so retailers as well. We work with retailers, so as they access it as well. So it's always good to know that, you're seeing the same data as potentially wholesalers or retailers you work with. I know that insights and market insights might sound a little bit intimidating, especially when you look into category reports. Some of those words like ROS and MAT and all of this, like what does that mean? We've got a very handy glossary we produced recently that's available on the Knowledge Bank that really can help with all those acronyms that are used by either retailers or on webinars like this. So that's another little help here. And just to finish on introducing the Knowledge Bank before we go into market insights, this is how the platform looks like. How the platforms looks like, and as I said, there's other ways to follow us. So going on the website is one way, obviously, but you can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter to make sure that you are up to date on what we publish. So that was a really, really quick run through of what is the Knowledge Bank. And again, it's available for any Scottish food and drink business and or people that support the Scottish food and drink industry. So you can sign up. But the other part of my presentation was looking into insight and market insight and what that means, because that's a word that's really used a lot and thrown around. And you might wonder, what is the difference between data, fact, insight, intelligence, and all of that? My preference is really to use the word insight and in a specific context. We don't have enough time to reflect, get everyone to talk about what is insight, but maybe take a few seconds to just think if you've got your own definition or not. But very much when you think about customers, they have an expectation for insights. And it's important to have a bit of an idea of what they think they'll see when they tell you, what is your insight, what is your consumer insight or market insight that wants me that will convince me to list your product or to have your product on my menu. So I think it all starts with framing. So making sure you understand and be clear about the question you want to answer. So, what is the market you're looking at, or what is the occasion? What is the problem you're trying to solve? And then what happens is that you go into fact checking and fact gathering. And that could be on the Knowledge Bank, on Google, going on an e-commerce website. Charlie will talk about that as well. Going into store is another way to do that. And just trying to get a picture of, that problem you're trying to solve. And the insight is not at this stage. Insight is the next step, which is once you've got that picture, and I will bring an example just after that, so it's really clear. But once you've got all those facts, the insight is something that explains why things are happening. So why, and again, I'll show an example so it will become clear, but it's not the fact, it's not the data gathering, it's the next step. You have to have some sort of story in order for it to be an insight. And then you go into the implications, so the so what, and also what are you going to do with this insight. As I was saying, retailers, food services, they expect to see consumer and market insights in presentation, at the very least as a framing device to show what is happening in the market, but then how you fit in that market as well. So I promised I was going to show an example to really explain. So the framing, and so this is around the breakfast and breakfast occasion. So framing would be, how do we grow the out-of-home breakfast occasion? So, this is the target, this is what we want to get into. And the fact would be, since the pandemic, actually penetration is back to the same pre-pandemic level. So people are almost eating as much as breakfast as before when they are out of home. But the frequency is down, which means the value of the out-of-home breakfast market is lower than pre-pandemic. So that's a fact, but it doesn't tell us what's happening. So you need to go one step further, and this is the insight, is that frequency is down because there is an increase in at-home and hybrid working. We're all online today, so that's a demonstration of that, as well as the cost of living crisis. So people are skipping breakfast out of home because they may have a little bit less in their pocket. So that is the insight, and that's what's going to lead you to think what could be the solution. So if you're thinking about a product, or what could be a way to solve your customer problem, which is, my breakfast opportunity is down year on year or since pre-pandemic because I have less customers. So implication, potentially a solution would be to think, okay, the out-of-home breakfast market is not as big as it used to be because of the frequency down, but how can we turn that around? Well, what are the pockets of opportunity? One would be on-the-go consumers, so people who are still going to the office and have to find a way to have breakfast if they are really time constrained. So really things that are easy to pick up. And then weekend occasions, so people might still be going out, but really using other drivers such as sustainability, health, sustaining, which is more on energy. So really having some protein heavy breakfast, for instance. So that's the implication. And the action, so the solution would be a cereal brand may invest in a new product launch that is a protein on-the-go solution that is targeting the convenience channel, because we know maybe that's a channel that will see more consumers go on the go. A food service operator could look at an offer which has affordable drink and breakfast takeaway with calorie count, because that taps into that healthy aspect. So I hope that helps understand the difference between facts and insights, as well as the implication. And I just wanted to reflect as well on the words we've used, which are usually also used by, again, customers, occasions and needs. So Charlie will talk a little bit more about this, but it's really understanding those pockets of moments where your consumer is having your product in mind. So in the case of breakfast, obviously it's the morning, but actually it could be that people also have breakfast-like product throughout the day as a snack. So that's an opportunity, and that's a different occasion. In the case of alcohol, that would be socializing in home, so having guests, or sort of socializing out of home in a bar. Is it with friends? Is it on date? Those are occasions. I also talked about who is your consumer. So what is their characteristic is very important. What is their socio-demographic? What are their values? What are their habits, like in consuming media, diet, values? So all of this can be really helpful to build who is your target. And then the solution is how we answer the consumer need. So, we were talking about on-the-go consumers who want to pick up a breakfast bar on the way. Is there already a product that you have that could be tweaked for that occasion, for that consumer, or do you need to create something new? So all of this that I described just now is part of a Future of Breakfast report we produce. So it's right there and it's available. And we have loads of other reports like this that can really help you understand, as I say, the step-by-step for insights and how insight can be used. the other bits I wanted to show you, and that comes more from my category management background, but that's really useful to tell a story with customers, so retailers especially, but that can apply to wholesalers as well, is around rethinking the three areas here, which is consumer needs, your own need as a company, as well as a commercial value both for you and your customer, so say a retailer. And this can be really a way to see if your presentations using market insights to, for instance, a buyer is really ticking all those boxes. So are you answering a consumer need, like a gap in market? Sorry, yeah, just beating Catherine. So yeah, are you solving a gap in market or a consumer need? Is it fitting in an existing consumer mission or occasion? And do you know your consumer? Fitting your need, obviously, is it like within your image, like brand image, your range? Is that something that can link well with what you already produce, as well as obviously your own cost and margin? And then thinking about that retailer aspect or that wholesaler aspect, is it an incremental value for them? So do they have already a product that's already answering that need, either that consumer need or their own need? Is there a growth potential for the category? So I hope it makes sense, and that can really be a guide on how you produce a presentation, is thinking about your shopper need, your customer strategy, also how that fits into, you know, Sainsbury's strategy, for instance. What are the target consumer, and then your own brand strategy. And I've put here, I won't go into detail, conscious of time, but a few quotes from panel we've had in the past, from a producer perspective, from a retailer perspective, and food service operator perspective, and they all say over and over, and I've heard that firsthand from buyers as well in Scotland and in the UK, that they really expect that consumer and market data. And you can't just come to a meeting saying, this is my product and it's the best and it tastes good, and this is it. Like, I know no one would do exactly that, but they want a little bit more. And that step further is thinking about who is the consumer target. Does it fit with their own consumer or their own shopper? And does it fit with their own strategy? So you need to kind of fill that three, like, Venn diagram of your own needs, the consumer shopper need, as well as the retailer need, or the customer if it's a wholesaler. So yeah, I guess one thing to do is to sign up on the Knowledge Bank, and just wanted to highlight, this is not just Scotland Food and Drink. We work with other partners, and we really represent the Scotland Food and Drink partnership. So just a few here. One of them is Scottish Enterprise, and Highland and Island Enterprise as well. Both have ways to help. I've put here a few other resources, and it's just non-exhaustive. It's just a starter for 10, but don't feel like if you have a small budget, or if you're a small brand that you can't afford, I don't know, Kantar data, there's ways to access some of it, or at least on the Knowledge Bank, there's already quite a lot. So there's always ways to start somewhere. And yeah, I hope this was helpful. I know I went quite fast, but we have a few minutes at the end for question. And you can always contact me as well. So over to Rick, who actually used to work for Scotland Food and Drink. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, thanks, Anne-Laure. Just will get my screen shared here. Okay, that should be up now. So thanks, Anne-Laure. Yeah, so as she mentions, I used to do a very similar role to her at Scotland Food and Drink about 6 years ago. Just to introduce Joseph Robertson, probably most of you guys will have heard of us. We're quite different in that we don't do any branded products. We're a own label fish processor based in Aberdeen, providing private label products for the likes of Tesco, Morrison's, Lidl, and Co-op. I suppose it's quite a good. Whilst we're probably at the advanced level now, we started this journey with Scotland Food and Drink probably about 10 years ago, working with team likes of Anne-Laure there to get advice, to get some of the free insight, and then to take us on that journey to be a more advanced user So I suppose this sort of starts today that without data, we couldn't even exist in our marketplace because it's very competitive. My attitude always is if you're not showing the retailer the data, what your competitors will be in a better light for them. So you sort of need it to compete at that level. So this is a quick case study of a piece of work we did probably about 5-6 years ago now with one of our retailer customers in order to grow the category. So first of all, we recognised, say, that this was back in, I think, 2017. We recognised that at a total market level, this is our category code at fish and fish cakes with this retailer. We noticed that this retailer, I'm calling them Retailer X to redact them, was seeing a sales decline in the marketplace, which was quite concerning because at that time this retailer was doing very well. And then we also did different Kantar showing that the total market of fish cakes and coated fish was actually in big growth. So sort of asked ourselves the question, well, why are we declining? What are we doing wrong? It must be our product range, because if a retailer's doing well at a macro level and the category's doing well at a macro level, then there's something not right. And again, we invested in Kantar data to look at this further. We've seen that market share-wise, we've seen that everyone else in the market was in growth significantly, but Retailer X here was actually in 30% decline. So we thought, right, we need a plan here. We need to get things back on track and see where we're going wrong. So at that point, working with Scotland Food and Drink, they advised us to invest more heavily in Kantar data, which, and I don't know how it is now, but at that time, Scottish Enterprise and High were able to help us with that investment. Again, probably Alistair will be able to tell you later on better if that's still the case or not. And we had built up an approach and actions. So at that point, we decided that we were going to pretty much tell the retailer what they should be doing, but in a much more structured way and actually with evidence to back it up. So it was our point. We wanted to become what we refer to as category captains, where we look at not just fish cakes, bread of fish, but total fish, looking at which areas get space and whatnot and which products work best. So we worked with Kantar to get a wider market view and build unique attributes where we could segment and slice the category and look at it in different views, and invest further to get more detailed data looking at demographic data and switching data. And then we also invested at this point with Nielsen, and that was to buy into the loyalty card data. So your Tesco Club card, your Nectar cards, whilst primarily consumers think they're a way to get rewards, they're actually a cash cow for retailers in terms of selling this data to their suppliers. But then this gets you very detailed data on the shopper type, what they're buying, where they're buying it, etc. At that point, too, the company made a decision to employ an experienced category manager full-time to be able to work with the retailer more heavily. Likewise, at the time, we developed a framework to inform NPD what products they should be developing. You should never just develop NPD products blindly. There always has to be a reason why we're doing it and a target customer for them. And also advising the retailer which stores to put them into based on demographic analysis. This particular retailer has over 3,000 stores across the UK. You will rarely see the same range in every store because it was tweaked to be by regional, by affluence, by even now the species preference by region we could dig into. So that time we developed a framework, and the framework was shopper-led, looking at the customers and their missions, which I think Charlie's going to talk about in a bit. Taking into account store clustering, so are they premium stores, are they value stores, which products should be developed for these? Then data validated, so we analysed the market data, looking at retailer performance, and considered range and looked at gaps. Gap analysis is really easy to do, really simple. Just going out and looking at what other retailers have to see what we think is doing well. For new flavors, we had to ensure they were following macro flavor trends and looking at trends. It's something again I know you can get through the knowledge bank in some detail by category. So looking at flavors, product types, and then where the above can't be validated, we went to do focus group panels across the UK, testing the concepts with consumers. Nowadays, it's actually you can do it a lot easier with the likes of Viper and all these sort of rapid response, which again I think Scotland Food and Drink can help with or advise on at least. And after validation and products are all signed off, we then we always do a 3-month review post-launch to make sure the products are working and to do any tweaking in terms of ranging. I think at this point, we developed 10 products, but probably you only receive 5 at any one store because we would range them by affluence and regionally. So look at some examples and execution of this. So we use some TrendHUB data. This is looking at sort of trending cuisines and flavors, looking at that time what was sort of in growth. So we're looking at that time we looked at Thai and modern Asian flavors for our fish cakes, and the Thai one's still in store now. We also found really interesting. We got some. This is for sea fish. So if you're a fish supplier, sea fish have also a lot of really good insight. We're able to look at regionally preference versus cod or haddock. Because shelf space is quite tight, we couldn't have both a breaded cod and a breaded haddock on shelf. So we looked at it regionally. So if you go into these stores in Scotland, you're probably only ever see haddock because that's a preference in Scotland. Whereas down in England and Wales, the preference tends to be cod. So again, we're able to look at that in detail. We also work with Kantar to segment our products further. So for instance, fish cakes. A fish cake isn't just a fish cake because we split it into Cakes Core, Cakes Melt Centre, Cakes Premium, because again, they all different consumers in different places on shelf. Likewise, too, we worked with Kantar to look at different, by retailer, looking at what sort of species are most common, and again, looking at gaps to where we could do it further. Execution-wise, we worked with the retailer and looked at these were our store clusters. So, for instance, the biggest one was national traditional high footfall. There's a Scottish separate one, a Wales separate one, and then also a value one for less affluence. So we could look there at subsector of which products were selling best in which cluster, and then we could range accordingly, which was very handy. Likewise, too, using the retailer's loyalty card data, we're able to look at they segment their customers into 6 different categories, from foodies to cash conscience. Again, we could look at these by all the clusters and then develop products and range accordingly for these. So it was quite a large piece of work, but in terms of results of it, we've seen at that time, post this activity, growth was up 15% compared to a category average of 4%. We increased our market share from 3.4 to 5.2%. So again, the data and insights important for us to validate and review of the work we did. For Coda Phillips, we've seen retail X was up by 32%, almost a third. So it was all in all a very successful piece of work, and it's something that we do now every couple of years just to make sure that we're on track and doing things right. I appreciate this sort of level of work or a level of insight is probably 10 years ago we never thought we'd get to this level, but we found that to work with retailers at that level we really needed to, and from our growth journey, I think. In the past 10 years, we went from an £8 million company to nearly a £50 million company, and that has definitely been partially fueled by insight, by being able to compete with our larger competitors across the UK. So again, I encourage all to reach out to the likes of Anne-Laura and use Alistair and the service, because we were there 5-6 years ago, and it's helped us grow immensely. Thank you. Pass on to Charlie now.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk about insights from retailers, and I'm going to focus on shopper missions and the in-store environment, thinking about optimizing in-store placement, which has probably been touched on a little bit already, and then some considerations for suppliers in retailer conversations. So just a little bit about me first. So I'm an independent category insight and shopper marketing consultant. I've worked in the food industry for 17 years in large and small manufacturers, supplying retail mostly. And I now work as a consultant based in Scotland. My roles have covered category management, insight shopper marketing. I've worked on top 4 retailers, convenience, impulse, online, food service and distributors, and international markets as well. I've done a lot of work, similar to what Rick's just talked about, working with retailers to understand shoppers, create plans, using lots of data and insight to drive growth. I've been involved in the launch of literally hundreds of products and have worked across multiple categories, some of which are on the screen now. So if I move on to what I'm here to talk about today, so I'm focusing on shopper missions and the in-store environment. So thinking about shopper missions and in-store placement of products. first of all, I think it's really important to think about the fact that when people enter a store, they've got really ingrained behaviours around what they're doing in that store. They've got products they buy all the time. They probably shop a lot of things on autopilot. When they're visiting certain categories, they might not be massively engaging with what's going on because they're there just to grab what they always grab. I read a study recently where someone had done some research and they said that shoppers were typically reading about 7 words through entering the store to leaving the car park. So there's a lot to try and get right in that space where people have things they do all the time, and we're trying to intercept that to get them to buy different products or trade up or sample different NPD that's been launched. So part of that is, if you think about these spaces in store that your shoppers are going to, getting your product in the right place to target that shopper is really important, and getting your product in the right place in store can have a big impact on sales. And then linking further into that, if you then think about, well, why is that person in the store? What are they here for? What's their mission for that trip? That, again, can really help where products should be ranged. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about shopper missions, a bit more detail on that before I go into different types of categories and how we can put products in different places to drive sales. So typically, retailers will tend to talk about 4 different types of mission. There are different missions, but these would be the main ones that you would talk about. So first of all, there's main shop. So shoppers have visited a retailer for their main big shop of the week or sometimes of the month. It could be once a week. They're stocking up on all of those key items from across the store. Now, typically, these are going to be, big trolley spends, big basket spends. And when you're spending a lot of money, and particularly during the cost of living crisis, they're likely to be well planned. They've got a list. They may well have planned what meals they're going to have for the week. They may even have things like, I need a meal for Wednesday, or I need something for so-and-so in the household who's going to do something different on a Thursday. So it might be generic things they're looking for as well, where there are opportunities to influence, but quite likely that it's going to have a list for that. It's not always the case, but they're going to be quite well planned. They're going to be on a list. So if you think about it in the context of your product, like, how do you get on the list, or how do you get somewhere in the store that is near where they're going on their list? The second mission would be a top up. So you're not getting a big basket shop. You're going to be picking up things that you've run out of, that you can't wait for until you do your next big shop. So quite likely to be fresh. Things like milk and bananas are probably going to feature heavily on a list like that. It's like, what are the replenishment items? And you might then pick up a few other things around the store at the same time, because you're not in that kind of like focused cost saving main shop mode. Another really big mission that retailers tend to focus on is meal for tonight or tea for tonight. There are other meal occasions, and we've had breakfast mentioned already today, but meal for tonight is kind of a bigger one, is a big spend opportunity for retailers. And so meal for tonight, literally, you've got people tend to be on their way home, or they're buying a meal for the next day or something, but they walk into a store and the only thing that is on their mind is that they need something for tea, to feed 2, 3, 4 people, one person. So the scope of being able to influence what that person's going to buy is huge, because they've got potentially no predetermined ideas. I mean, yes, they might be thinking about the perspective of whether they're going to cook from scratch, whether they're going to they've got something in their fridge they're going to add to that, or whether they need to just get everything. And also, how many people you're going to feed. Those would be some predetermined things. But in general, there's a lot of scope there for, I'm just going to walk into a store and I need something for my dinner. And then finally, the area that I would describe as being I'd call it as distressed purchase, but you've gone to a retailer because you need something, you're in desperate need of something. So it might be like a gift. I've got to go and get a present for somebody. I've got to go and get some flowers. Recently I was doing some baking. I needed 2 eggs and I only had 1 halfway through. I needed to go to the shop and buy some more eggs. So a distressed purchase where you need something quite instantly. So, you're going to go into a store, you're probably going to be quite directive around what you're doing, and that's all you're thinking about, but then you might get influenced on your way to the till to pick up something else that you need. So these would be the kind of 4 main missions that retailers would talk about. Yes, there would be more, particularly around meal occasions, but these are kind of the 4 typical missions. So I'm just going to spend some time now talking about different types of categories, the kind of roles different categories play, thinking about destinations, channels, and also events as well. and how you think about optimizing your placement within those. So first of all, within a retailer, you would have what I would call your kind of big stock up, high frequency categories. They're ones that are going to have really high penetration when we talk about market data. You know, most people are going to be buying into things like bread, milk, cereals, produce and meat, and there would be more of them. They're really important for retailers because these are the ones where if you go to a store and you can't get what you want out of these, it will drive you to go somewhere else. So they're really important categories for retailers. There's ones where you're getting your usuals, your refills, your basics that you need. You know, you're filling up for the month on what you need in your home as well. They need to have really good availability, and there's also kind of really specific things around these. Typically they're designed to be quite easy to restock, so whilst it isn't in the picture there, you know, milk is on trolleys. You have crates that are used quite a lot in these categories as well, so they can be restocked really easily and really quickly. But these are categories that, you know, people are going to visit frequently, and I think there'd be a lot of signposts in these as well around things that people would look for. You know, you've got Kellogg's that donates probably cereals, and then you've got that key look and feel of milk that people would see. But, you know, when people are shopping these categories, is there anything else that could go near them or within them that would cater to the same mission, or would be a way of getting your product there in front of somebody when they are buying those categories as well? The second kind of group of categories I'm talking about is meal-based, mission-led categories. So I've talked about Meal for Tonight a little bit already, so I'll come back onto that. But there will be people going into store to shop for a specific meal occasion. Now, breakfast was touched on earlier as an out-of-home occasion, but on the left-hand side here, I've got a picture from Marks and Spencer's that I took recently, where they'd made a whole breakfast bay to target people on the go for that breakfast occasion, tapping into kind of different health needs, into kind of different choices for people there. But if you think that's probably those products in there may well be something that sits in a different part of the store in a different format, and they've just been reshaped and recatered for to sit into a breakfast meal occasion. They might be things that have sat in dairy, they might be things that have sat in produce, but they've all been brought together for this specific mission-led category of like breakfast that they've tried to make. So the second area, which is probably fairly obvious there, but we've got food to go, and that's a picture of Boots. I think Boots was probably one of the first people to ever launch meal deals. But meal deals and food to go is really kind of premium retail space. It's right at the front of store. You've got loads of competition to get into that space because, you know, everybody wants to put their drinks and their snacks into that category, because it's got a really high footfall for a really, really specific occasion. But it's at the front of store, designed to get in and get out quickly. But again, this is lots of different products that have been condensed into an offer to cater for a meal occasion. You know, you've got crisps and snacks that you're probably going to find in different parts of the store as well. So can they form part of a food to go mission? And then finally, on the right-hand side here, I've got a picture of Amazon Fresh, where they just had a section called meals. So you could find anything within this that would probably cater to like an evening meal. Everyone's going to understand what that is. For things like pizzas, you've got slow cooked meals, you've got fresh vegetable accompaniments, you've got ready meals, you've got ready to cook products. You've probably got brands in there like Charlie Bigham's. Yeah, that's a really key mission for retailers, because, you know, people are just turning up and want to be inspired around what they're going to have for their meal occasion. So there's all sorts of different products that could sit in there. I mean, even some of the products that Rick talked about as well, you know, where you could put meals together with some sides, with some fish products as well. So lots of opportunity around what can go into a meal space. The next type of area I was going to talk about was destination. So I would classify a destination as an area of store that's to cater for a really specific target market or a really specific occasion. So I've got a few different examples here just to think about whether, you know, if you've got something that's really, really specific, whether it could be grouped together with similar products or if it needs its own kind of, you know, potentially special space evolved into retail as well. So on the left-hand side, I've got some Sainsbury's, what I describe as meal boxes. So it's all the raw ingredients in them. And they've made a really kind of clear, obvious destination here to try and inspire people to use these. They probably see as a big opportunity in this space around Meal for Tonight, but people that want to scratch cook Meal for Tonight. two other ones here that are quite different. So at the bottom, I've got Tesco, and that's a Polish bay. So all the products designed for typically Polish consumers. It's a category that I've worked on before and helped to evolve in the UK. So all of the kind of really specific Polish products are all together. We've then got Sainsbury's above, Deli Kitchen, where they've tried to make a specific space around food to go in the same way that the sandwiches earlier, but kind of a more premium feel to it, with lots of different types of products in there, like sushi and salad bowls and sandwiches. And then finally, Holland and Barrett on the right hand side, where some of the stores have got chilled food products in now, so they're all kind of really healthy, a kind of like a donated health food space that's all chilled kind of food products rather than just the ambient products that are in most of the rest of the store. So when we get to categories, there's often subcategories within the categories that we need to think about. So, you know, we might have a gin product or a cheese product that I've got examples for here. But when you get to that category, where is the best place for it to be within that space? So how do people shop gin? Are they looking for signpost products initially? So things like Gordon's or Bombay Sapphire to find the category. And then, you know, how do people shop within that? Do they want to buy regional? Do they want to buy flavoured? So where should your product go within it? Or have you even created a new kind of space? And then what's the best way to trade people up into your new type of gin product than what's there already? And then there's things, an example here of cheese. So you think, yes, I've got a cheese product, it needs to go in cheese, but there's lots of different types of cheese. We've got snacking cheese, sliced cheese, grated, block, speciality. So what's the best place for yours? There's probably signpost products in there. So I'd guess that something like Cathedral City would be the block product that would be the signpost for your blocks of cheese. And in snacking, it would be like kids products like Cheese Strings and Dairy Lee. So have you got things that cater to similar needs that should go near those? Or have you got a speciality product? And then even within speciality, you know, how is that broken down? Is it by region, by country, by type? So thinking about, once you've identified it, where then should it go? Where's the best place for it to go? And if it's something new, you know, what makes sense in terms of what it's closest to trade up from or trade into from a shop that's already buying something else or where they've already visited that category. Just a little bit on adjacencies. So if you're going to get a product into chilled space or an ambient category on a shelf, you know, something's got to come out for yours to go in, if you like, if you're trying to get something listed. So kind of creative ways that you can get listed in the category or extra space that don't require a product to be delisted or moved or go into less stores to get your product in. If your product is small enough, whether you can use clip strips. So there's some examples here of clip strips being put into complementary categories. So there's some lids there that are sitting next to cream. There's product in the middle next to the Weetabix. That's kind of like breakfast toppers, so like seeds and nuts that you can put on top of your breakfast that doesn't need space on shelf, but it's right next to the breakfast product. And then I've just got like a beauty product here. So I think it was kind of like a face mask that was near other like hair products. So it doesn't need space on shelf. It can hang in front of it. We've then got FSDUs, so just tapping into Anne-Laur's comment about all the category jargon and all the retailer jargon. So freestanding display units. Yes, there's of course going to be a cost to putting these into store, but they create extra space and they offer massive marketing opportunities because you can brand the whole thing, and you can, you know, essentially try and get them wherever you think the right place is for them to be in store around that mission too. So I think one of the important things about space is it doesn't stand still. It evolves all the time. And events are really important for retailers. They're a really key way they get footfall driven into stores. So, you know, there'll be lots of PR, lots of advertising around specific events. And I think some retailers have got quite a good cadence of events. So a few examples here of the obvious ones. We've got Christmas. There'd be huge space changes in store around Christmas, products that are potentially things that have been sold all year round that get new packaging on them, or you might have a category that loses space at Christmas. You might have loads of NPD at Christmas, obviously one of the biggest ones. But things like Halloween and Valentine's are probably events that have grown massively, probably in the last 5 years. When I first started in food, Valentine's was a really small event and it's now massive each year in terms of that kind of dine-in occasion. And then we've got an example here as well of Lidl. So Lidl have got, I'd say they've got quite a good cadence of events. They've got lots of cuisine events that happen. So they'll have Italian week, Alpine week, Greek week. You know, have you got products that can fit into that occasion and that event that they've got? And then at the bottom, we've got other, you know, kind of events around Father's Day and sports. So particularly online as well, these events are all activated and retailers will be looking for product suggestions to go into these. And from a retailer perspective, these are all kind of ways to drive incremental sales. So if you've got products that can tap into these occasions, that's fantastic. And you should try and, you know, suggest that they go into these event spaces. And it's not just about like food. There's also, you'd probably find wellness events. I'm sure that Tesco did like a sleep event recently, and they had all like sleep products together and teas together. There's also awareness weeks as well, and Father's Day, Mother's Day we've just had. And if we think back to Anne-Laura's presentation around the knowledge bank, there's examples in there around the trend reports about Hogmanay and Burns Night too that you can get to. So there's lots of information around what events are available, but it's just an example of how space changes. It doesn't stand still, it's always evolving. And I think I've got another example of that, which even more innovation in what's happening in stores. So Tesco have now got some TikTok trend-led bays. So there was a TikTok trend around, I think it was like pimped up salads. So they've now got products they've put together so you can create these really tasty like salad combos, but it was all inspired from TikTok. I think it's just another example of it's always evolving. Things will change and they'll tap into trends that are still in the market. And this is quite interesting because it was taken from a social media trend. So finally from me, obviously I've talked about kind of what I'd call big box retailers, but space changes in other channels as well. So we've got convenience, online, and also rapid delivery. So do you have a product that caters to missions in these channels as well? You know, from a convenience perspective, you've got to take potentially, you know, a whole aisle of product and get it into one bay. Is your product got enough need within a convenience store to go into that bay? Then again, where does it go? Does it sit somewhere different for a different mission? And then again for online, so online, people probably shop slightly differently online as they do in store. You know, they're using search, they're using favorites, they're using the taxonomy. So where should products sit? How does your product break down into different areas once you get it to an online platform? And online is not just about, you know, Tesco.com and Ocado. We've also now got rapid delivery to think about as well. So, you know, what are the needs of shoppers when they're in a rapid delivery situation, like using Deliveroo or Whoosh for Tesco? What are the key things that need to be on there? Because it's going to be a condensed offer. So, you know, if it's a distress mission, does your product cater to a distress mission? If it's a meal-based mission or, you know, a convenience-based mission, what products, you know, could go on there? Do you have something that caters to that space? Thinking about, you know, what shoppers are doing and how they're behaving. So yeah, how does categories change when they get into channels, and what are the needs of the shoppers based on your category when you're there? So just a few, kind of leave you with a few kind of considerations. So when you're talking to retailers, knowing your market, I think we've seen this from the first two presentations. Obviously, you can use lots of data and insight to show that you know your market, but it's just as important to go into stores as well and understand, you know, what's out there. Think about how people are shopping your category. Are they planning what they're doing before they get there? Are they writing a list? Is it an impulse purchase? And it all feeds into that insight story that was talked about as well. You know, what's the insight around how shoppers are behaving as well? And that will help you think about where your product should go. And then, you know, how do they engage with the category when they get there? Are they browsing further? Are they looking for a category signpost? You know, things like that are really dominant brands, you know, like Heinz or Kellogg's or whatever it is. And where should your product be in store? And then I think as well, when it comes to changing space, having a recommendation across the year, it can be really helpful and really important. You know, retailers need to fill space online with product suggestions. So how does your product change across the year? Are there events that you can cater to? And the way I always do this is I would just have a calendar and I would talk about the different events that your products would cater to across the year. So having a recommendation for where your product should be and why, and then which events does it cater to? And then the final thing I'll say before we finish is that I haven't talked about this much today, but timing of conversations is really important as well. So if your category only has a range change once a year, what's the right time of year to go and talk to a retailer about getting the changes made? What are the planning cycles like for events? So how far in advance will they be planning for January health? Is it 3 months? Is it 4 months? Is it 5 months? Is it 6 months? Christmas is going to be something that's planned for 12 months ahead. They'll start in January to plan Christmas for that year. So what are the timelines like to talk about things at the right time to kind of land those different opportunities? And I think that's me.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a couple of quick slides to do before we finish. I'll do them now. So I will share my screen just to let you know about a couple of things that are coming up from the TechHUB's perspective. So the first thing that's happening that you guys might be interested in is our bespoke one-to-one support. So if you're interested in applying for intensive one-to-one support, so you can get access to a food and drink expert to help you overcome a specific challenge in your business, the applications for that are now open, and the deadline for application is the 4 p.m. on Friday, the 28th of June. So if you have a challenge in your business, it might be you want help to do some new product development, you want some help to look at your packaging, you might want some help somebody like Charlie who look at market insights, you might want to look at your branding strategy, your marketing, it might be something to do with manufacturing and production. Then if you're looking for some help and you think you could get an expert to come in and work with you guys for a few days, up to 3 days, then please get in touch and we can set you up with the application form. If you want to apply, please get in touch with me using the email address there on the screen, and then we'll set you up with the application form on the MyHigh account. And then you'll get in the portal there and you can fill. It's just 5 or 6 questions asking about what your business is, what type of support you want, who you want the support from, and then if successful, we'll then allocate you somebody to work with you, and they'll work with you over the next couple of months to try and overcome that challenge. If you are interested in applying, I say that you have to get the support now, so you can't apply and then ask for the support in 6 months. It would be to do now and deliver over the next couple of months. We also have common interest groups. So if you are a food and drink business in the supply chain or a farmer, and you have a food and drink related challenge, you could apply to the TechHUB to receive support from a dedicated expert who will help you to develop a collaborative group to overcome an ongoing challenge. So if you wanted to work with some like-minded entrepreneurs or businesses or farms, and you think by working together to overcome a particular challenge would be beneficial, then we can allocate you a specialist facilitator to work together to overcome that challenge. So if you're working in the same sector, or if you have the same geographical area, or if you have the same issue or plans for growth, then it'd be a really good idea to apply, and then we can help you to identify some businesses that might want to work with you to overcome these challenges. So we've funded 4 common interest groups at the moment. 2 of them are finished. So they were the Highland Distillers Group, which was 16 independent distillers collaborating on things like logistics, tourism, net zero. We had the Black Isle Feast Project, which was encouraging collaboration in the Black Isle to showcase local produce. And we've got 2 projects that are happening at the moment. One's a Highland Cake Collab, which is a collaboration between small artisan bakers and an in-vessel composting network. The businesses that are interested in looking at methods of recycling food waste. So if you are interested in applying for that, there is going to be a deadline for that as well, which will be the Friday, 26th of July. So that's the end of next month. And you've got the application form there, so you can either scan it on your phone or get the link or get in touch with myself and I can send you a link. But we're really interested in anybody's got ideas for groups that might want to set up. And we we can help you identify other members, other businesses that can join the group and help identify a facilitator who then coordinate the group for you. So you can get on your day job, but then somebody else will be there to help and see what the opportunities might be. We also have our podcast, which has been really good. It's called Food and Drink Business Bites. We've now had 8 episodes are now live, and the 9th episode will be released in the next couple of weeks. That episode is going to be interviews with Shore Seaweed and Cairngorm Brewery about our recent learning journey, which was to the IFE conference in London. But there's some other interesting case studies as well with some of the companies we work with, some of the events we've showcased, and it's really good. So you can get these podcasts on your usual platform where you download them and listen. And yeah, as I say, there's eight episodes, and the 9th episode will be coming out in the next week or two. Again, you can scan the QR code there. And also we have an event feedback form. So if you are interested in giving us some feedback, please scan the QR code there as well. And I'll be sending out an email tomorrow with details. And I would really encourage you, if you can, just to spend 2 minutes to give us some feedback on how you thought it went, what if it was interesting, and the ideas you think you may have for webinars in the future. So that's our webinar finished. Just want to thank our 3 speakers for presenting today. Thank you guys very much for coming and listening. I hope you found it worthwhile. And as I say, we'll be sending out information as well about upcoming deadlines for one-to-one support and common interest groups. And we'll be doing another event, I think in August, which I think will be a photography workshop. So if you're interested in how to take better pictures of your food products, keep your eye out with them, and we'll let you know that's happening soon. So thank you very much. And we'll send out some information tomorrow. Also, we'll have a recording as well. If you are wanting to review, or if people missed it, they could watch it again. So thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.